Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip Hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is another bonus episode of Hip Hop Now Podcast, a timed exclusive for members to the YouTube channel. If you would like to become a member and find out what that's all about, or if you're a member now and you're like, hey, just me and this other member, the only one who have access. The link is in the description of this episode. Please become a member, support the podcast. There's a number of reasons why you should or would, because you enjoy the content that you get here. But this is another reaction video from myself. I did a few in 2025. Wanted to pick that right back up into the holiday season. And today we have a video. Well, let's just cut to it right now. So this is a video from the channel Rap Rush Daily, entitled Pharoahe Monch, the rap genius who was ahead of his time. Now, I caught this just browsing through, recommendations, and I was like, that's an interesting take, because in a lot of ways, it sounds similar to things I've said on this podcast and other podcasts as it relates to Pharoahe Monch and organized confusion to begin with. But I saw this video. I said, you know what? I'm going to save it just to watch it with you. So definitely, first of all, go check out Rap Rush Daily's page. Subscribe if you like the content, because, that's all this reaction is about, is supporting other guys out there doing hip hop. So let's hit the play button.
Most people have heard this song.
Get the f*** up. Simon says, get the f*** up.
It's the track that put Pharoahe Monch on MTV and in every DJ's crate around the year 2000.
Well, eat a donut. Wow.
For a lot of people, that's where the story ends. Just another one-hit wonder from the late 90s. The truth is, Pharoahe Monch was so much more. Before and after Simon Says, he was crafting some of the most complex, technical, and thought-provoking rap music ever made. This is his story. Before Pharoahe Monch was a solo artist, he was part of a duo called Organized.
First of all, what y'all know about Pharoahe Monch? Yeah, I don't know nothing about that. All right, I'll stop. Let's keep going.
Confusion alongside Prince Poe. The two met in high school in Queens and started making music under the name Simply Two Positive MCs. At one point, Def Jam even considered signing them. But when Russell Simmons told them they had to change their whack-ass name, they went back to the drawing board, eventually landing on Organized Confusion. Early on, they caught the attention of legendary producer Paul C, who helped them record their first demo in the late 80s.
Wow.
When I rap for the prisoners of war.
Tragically, Paul C was murdered in 1989. He was among the first to see the potential of Organized Confusion.
Now, if you don't know who Paul C is, beyond what was just explained here, he was also like Large Professor's right hand. I wonder what hip hop at that time and what other artists would have been discovered, or just wonder how hip hop would have played out in some ways had Paul C lived, because his impact on hip hop, especially at that time, is very slept on. And as you can see, what Pharoahe Monch tweeted back in 2011, no Paul C, no organized, no Pharoahe Monch. So.
And without him, their story might have never started. But the duo kept pushing forward, eventually signing to Hollywood Basic Records. Their self-titled debut album dropped in 1991. The album covered an unusually wide range of themes for its time, from playful everyday humor to political ideas, mysticism, and even sci-fi style paranoia. And while it didn't sell huge numbers, it blew minds in the underground. Pharaoh in particular stood out.
Cell walls to membranes, cytoplasms and protoplasms disintegrate. I'm eliminate. I'm not on asm in battle. I display a new.
His delivery was theatrical and unpredictable. He could shift voice.
Sound like someone you know, right? We'll probably get to it. It's almost you know what we talking about.
Bend syllables and turn a single verse into a short film. One of the wildest things about Pharaoh's style is that he's dealt with asthma his entire life, and you'd never guess it from the way he raps. Instead of avoiding difficult patterns, he learned to breathe through them, carving his verses into tight rhythmic pockets that let him hit syllables with insane precision. Their second album, Stress: The Extinction Agenda, released in 1994, pushed things even further. The production was darker, the writing was sharper, and the themes were heavier. It dug into the harsh realities of urban life, oppression, violence, and personal struggle, packed with internal rhymes and complex metaphors far ahead of their time. They even had a song where they rapped from the perspective of a bullet, long before Nas brought a similar idea to the mainstream with I Gave You Power.
I'm saying, those who know. We've been through this a million times on this podcast. I've said it on other podcasts. And not that it's some kind of revelation for those who know, but before I Gave You Power, there was Organized Confusion on his album. Hold up, I think I have this on cassette. I know I do, but I don't know. I just went and looked, and the garage is cold. So let's continue.
The moment fans still point to as proof of Pharaoh's genius is his verse on the track Bring It On. His verse on that track is one of the greatest technical displays of the 90s. He switches flows mid-sentence, changes cadences with no warning, bends syllables, and spits rapid-fire bars that sound like they're from another era.
I even be getting more graphics than I need OG ready to fit computer chip. I flow upwardly, I flow fast to the rhythm. When I'm in a state of mind, I'm innovative.
The album didn't get the recognition it deserved. It sold more than their debut, but still nowhere near enough to match its impact. Critics respected it, underground fans worshipped it, but mainstream success never fully came. The music was too dense, too complex, too unconventional for the era. In 1997, they released their third and final album, The Equinox. It was a concept record filled with storytelling skits and social commentary, including tracks where they rap from the perspective of unborn twins and even adopt the voices of white supremacists to expose racism from the inside out. While it charted higher than their previous work, it didn't connect with critics or fans in the same way. Many listeners found the overarching concept confusing, but even those who struggled with the narrative still praised the duo's sharp lyricism and technical skill. And after its release, the duo quietly went their separate ways to pursue solo careers. After nearly a decade of pushing boundaries as part of one of hip-hop's most creative groups, Pharoah Monch was ready to strike out on his own. He signed to Raucous Records, the same label fueling the late 90s underground resurgence with artists like Mos Def and Talib Kweli. This was the home for rappers who wanted to bring lyricism back to the front line. In 1999, Pharoah released his debut solo album, Internal Affairs. The production was harder, the beats were bigger, and the songs leaned more toward crowd-moving hooks. But his lyrics...
The crazy part, just real quick, the crazy part about this, or let's just talk about Pharoah Monch and Organized Confusion in the 90s, those three albums. If you call yourself a hip hop head and you say, yo, I only like bars, right? Which is cool, right? Some of us like all of hip hop, but some people just want to hear bars. But a lot of guys that say that, they don't mean what we heard with Organized Confusion, because a lot of dudes in the 90s were, don't get me wrong, skilled in a lot of ways and dope, but a lot of dudes were posers, right? Because if you look at like what was shown here, displayed here from Pharoah Monch and his verses and switching up flows, like he's doing this at a time where most dudes' way of deep thinking on their album is taking a picture for their album cover like this. You go to the album, it's like, okay, you rapped about your neighborhood. What did you really say? and a lot of dudes like to portray themselves as these lyrical assassins. But what's a lyrical assassin when you really have to sit still and listen in order to get it? There are dudes who rap now that people say they dumb nice because they basically rap in these almost incomplete, incoherent sentences. And it's not really wordplay, and it doesn't really reveal anything. Not no dope bars or nothing like that. It's just people like them because of the way they rap. Pharoah Monch was more so like, no, there's substance within the way I rap. So it may be extremely technical and may not be for everybody. But if you're listening, it's not going to be like, oh, he did his laundry on Tuesday. That was the puzzle answer. No, it's usually way deeper than that. And then you're admiring how he put it together with this type of wordplay, breath control. Again, he had asthma, so it's kind of crazy. So when he came to the point of internal affairs, this was the Pharoah Monch that I felt like was more digestible. He still was a technical and crazy monster with the rhyming and the flows and the schemes. He also wasn't Pharoah Monch no more. And the Godzilla joint, I get ready to, I call it everything but the name of the title of the song, but you saw it at the beginning, the Godzilla sample. That made, casuals get into his music. And he's even displaying skills on that track, right? With the flows. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to say that because when you think about the early to mid 90s, it feels like everybody was that nice, but no, they were on a different level, which is, what this whole video is about. So let's continue.
Lyrical precision stayed razor sharp. He was still splitting syllables and bending flows in ways nobody else could. And then one song changed everything.
Get the f*** up. Simon says, get the f*** up.
Simon Says exploded. Built around a sample from the Godzilla theme, it became an anthem. Raw, aggressive, and impossible to ignore. DJs couldn't stop spinning it. MTV, radio, clubs, it was everywhere. For the first time in his career, Pharoah broke into the mainstream and Internal Affairs became his biggest commercial success. But the track's success came with problems. The company behind Godzilla sued over the sample, forcing Rawkus to pull the album from stores. Internal Affairs disappeared overnight, a major setback right when Pharoah was breaking through. According to him, the album moved roughly 300,000 copies during the brief period it was actually available in stores. For almost 20 years, Internal Affairs was trapped in legal limbo. Then in 2019, it finally returned. On October 19th, the album was officially reissued, making it available digitally for the teen. It finally returned to limbo. Then in 2009, it was actually available. 300,000 era was breaking through. According to him, Internal Affairs disappeared overnight, a major setback right when Pharoah track success came with problems. Mainstream and Internal Affairs became his biggest commercial success. But the track success came with problems. The album moved roughly 300,000 copies during the brief period it was actually available in stores. For almost 20 years until making it available digitally for the first time. Following the controversy, Pharoah would not release another solo project for several years, but he stayed active through guest features, soundtrack cuts, and loose singles throughout the early 2000s. Rawkus Records began to fall apart in the mid-2000s, and with the label no longer stable, Pharoah moved on. He eventually signed with SRC, and in 2007, nearly 8 years after his debut, he finally returned with his second solo album, Desire. This was a complete reinvention. Desire leaned into soul, live instrumentation, gospel, and big cinematic production. His writing was as precise and powerful as ever, but now he was experimenting with singing, layered vocals, and emotional storytelling in ways he never had before.
Not my favorite.
Tracks like Desire and Push really showed how far he had evolved, not just as an MC, but as an artist.
This is for my blue collar working, big guzzling, bootleg, DVD selling, keep hustling, push.
Desire didn't become a massive commercial hit, but the critical reception was strong. Fans saw it as a powerful return, a reinvention that proved Pharoah could evolve
And
without
just to me
losing
add
what
the
made it.
caveat of the reason why it's not one of my favorites is because I get it. He's an artist. He's being expressive. It's in some ways it's some of the reasons why, you know, I'll give a Kendrick or Andre 3000 props for being different. It wasn't that I didn't want Pharoah Monch to be different, but I sort of wanted, it was he was like singing a lot of Negro spiritual type joints on there. And I was just like, I didn't want to hear this from Pharoah Monch, right? Anybody else like Andre 3000, you could hear it from a mile away that he would do something like that. Even somebody like Kanye, and even with something like To Pimp a Butterfly. But again, I think this was before To Pimp a Butterfly, and you know what the title say, rap genius who was ahead of his time. I might have to run that back. I might have to run this album back because it's been a while.
Made him special. After Desire, Pharoah disappeared into the studio and came back with one of the most focused, politically charged albums of his career, War, We Are Renegades, released in 2011. Where Desire was soulful and melodic, War was much harder, darker production, sharper edges, and a heavy emphasis on social commentary. He leaned into themes of government surveillance, police brutality, institutional control, fear, and resistance. He also rapped like a man with something to prove. Tracks like Clap, War, and Assassins showed him operating at a level of precision and aggression most MCs half his age couldn't touch.
Particularly the vernacular, specifically the fit, so when I spit it, it's spectacular and accurate. When I attack, I'm more legend than accurate.
Again, the album was praised by fans and critics, but commercially it didn't make a big dent. A powerful, focused project that didn't translate into mainstream numbers. After War, Pharoah went even deeper. PTSD, released in 2014, is a darker, more personal concept album about trauma, depression, anxiety, and the psychological weight he'd been carrying for years. It loosely follows the story of a soldier returning home, physically present but mentally scarred, a metaphor for Pharoah's own battles with the industry, his health, and the pressure of his legacy. He also fires off some of his most technically impressive verses here, especially on Rapid Eye Movement with Black Thought and Dream featuring Talib Kweli.
You know the limericks are limitless, not limited in sentiment, but increments of infinite potential in the scenes.
Reception was largely positive. A few reviewers thought the narrative wandered at times, but praised Pharoah's razor-sharp lyricism and elite flow. It wasn't a commercial success, but among fans it stands as one of his most personal and impactful records. After the album, he shifted direction again, this time forming a genre-bending band called 13, alongside guitarist Marcus Machado and drummer Daru Jones. In 2021, the group released their debut and so far only album, A Magnificent Day for an Exorcism, a fusion of rock, rap, jazz, and psychedelic production. Reception, however, was more mixed than with his earlier work. Pharoah's lyricism was praised as always, but many listeners felt the album had huge potential that didn't fully come together. Ambitious, but not completely cohesive, and sometimes feeling more like a raw experiment than a polished statement. A personal highlight for me is Kill, 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 a track with a unique energy that cuts through the rest of the album. It's one of the moments where the band feels the most alive.
I have no freedom and all I know is kill, 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 kill.
Commercially, the project was almost invisible. It didn't chart, no sales figures were ever reported, and to this day, it feels like one of those albums only dedicated Monch fans even know exists. Even with the divided opinions, the project reinforced his willingness to reinvent himself and explore sounds most rappers would never touch. For years now, Pharoah has teased a follow-up solo album titled External Affairs, meant to mirror his debut album Internal Affairs. He even dropped a teaser promising a 2024 release, but the album never surfaced. There's still no official date, even though he occasionally hints that the project is alive and still in the works. Pharoah Monch has one of the most unique legacies in all of hip-hop. He was never a consistent commercial superstar, no platinum albums. Most of his work flew under the radar, but influence isn't measured in sales. Monch has inspired some of the most respected lyricists in the game.
Kumo D in the book. there's a god on the mic, said Pharaoh Monch is like an eloquent linguistics professor moonlighting as a rhyme serial killer terrorist, challenging the listener's IQ while daring him or her to keep up. Those are powerful words. That's high praise from a great MC.
From day one, he pushed the boundaries of what an MC could do. His technical ability, internal rhymes, shifting flows, and insane breath control set a standard most rappers still can't touch. His storytelling has always been next level, and creatively he's never boxed himself in. Across decades, Monch has stayed uncompromising, inventive, and consistently ahead of the curve. And that's his real legacy. He didn't just make great songs, he expanded what hip-hop could be. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel, consider donating.
All right, so you can check out that video. The link is in the description of this episode and more at Rap Rush Daily. Thought that was a pretty dope breakdown. Let's go back to the full view. It's pretty dope breakdown of Pharaoh Monch. Definitely accurate. I would have preferred to see him talk a little bit more about those that were influenced by Pharaoh Monch. One, namely, Eminem, mainly Eminem. You hear it in Eminem's flow, and Eminem is like influenced by a couple of different guys who have similar flows, maybe more so in the pacing, like Tretch, more than anything. I know he really messed with AZ, but when you think about it, like Eminem was influenced by wordplay, and you hear it when he raps, right? It's never one way. But Pharaoh Monch is like the most slept on MC ever in the game, because his solo discography is slept on. Organized Confusion as a group gets slept on and never mentioned when it comes to, MCs. And most of the MCs they would be compared to as far as groups, they're better than, and when I say better than, I'm not talking about did they make better songs or do we like them individually. I'm talking about technically speaking. When it comes to technique, most of us rap on a basic level, right? Not saying the bars are whack or that, anybody could have came up with it, but there's a basic level of rapping. Pharaoh Monch and Prince Poe were like 4 levels under the underground with it. So it's just one of those things where somebody like Pharaoh Monch, who's still active, who still has a follow-up to probably his biggest album, has to be his biggest album when you look at the stats with External Affairs. Hopefully in 2026 we get that album. But for anybody who's young, who watches that and doesn't know Pharaoh Monch, tap in. If you're a Eminem fan, right, a Tech 9 fan, any of those rappers that are Doom fan, whatever, any of those rappers who did a lot with wordplay, you know what I'm saying? That so you have to listen. And when you do listen that deeply and intently, you realize like, damn, he said this, and he put it together and it also means this. For those fans who love that when it comes to bars, Pharaoh Monch is like a early holiday gift for you. If you've never heard any of those Organized Confusion albums, especially the second and the last one, Equinox, but also if you've never heard Pharaoh Monch's albums outside of Internal Affairs, I'm telling you, you'll be in for a treat. I like Pharaoh Monch. I'm not one of those hip hop fans who has to hear that level of rhyming all the time. But I know when Pharaoh Monch drops an album, I'm not washing the dishes. I'm not cleaning up the house. I'm not doing no chores. I'm just listening. And it's dope to see that hip hop like that still exists. For those who like to say hip hop is dead, it is not. This guy's still around. He's still dope, and he got an album on the way. So big shout out to Rap Rush Daily. This is a reaction. Of course, go support that channel, but also support this channel. And let me know if you like seeing me react or watching videos. Obviously, I'm talking at the same time, but you can go and watch the video without me talking also. So support hip hop, and most importantly, share this content with people you know would also enjoy it. Until next time, I'm not a critic, I'm a fan. Peace.